Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Combaluzier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. This session of our Pre-PDAC mining showcase will feature Getchell Gold. From the company, we have with us Mike Sieb, who's the president. I'll note that if attendees have any questions throughout the presentation, to just type them in via the Q&A button in the Cvent app, and we'll get to it at the end of the session. I'll note the presentation is also on the conference website for your reference. And with that, I'll turn it right over to Mike to walk us through the story.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. And if anybody hasn't been paying attention, Getchell Gold Corp and the Fondaway Canyon Gold Project in Nevada, is one of the most prominent evolving stories in the region. So it is my pleasure today to kind of walk you through it and kind of show you the reason for that statement, the wonderful foundation that the project comes with, and the huge potential that we have proven, and that will kind of keep on proving as we move forward for a very busy year this year. So kind of just looking at this first slide, you're looking at Fondaway Canyon proper, kind of in the middle of the photograph. Off in the distance is Carson Sinks, which is one of the largest basins in the region, and probably about 40 kilometers away is the I-80, which is the main artery between Reno and Salt Lake City. And from where I'm standing right now, from the photograph, right on the western edge of the central area of mineralization, it's less than a 2-hour drive to Reno. I just want to quickly make you aware of the forward-looking statements. You can find them on our website. The one thing to note from this slide is our capital structure. We currently have about $1.7 million in the bank, so we're kind of sitting pretty comfortably. But of note is our warrants, and we're looking over about the next 12 to 16 months. Our warrants are going to generate a nice influx of cash, so a steady funding stream into our bank account of upwards of about $3 million. So we're kind of in a really nice position right now to get aggressive and basically do what needs to be done on the Fondaway Canyon project. We're in Nevada. Nevada is a great place to work. If you're not aware, just the past week, the Fraser Institute produced their annual survey and ranked Nevada as the #1 mining jurisdiction in the world. And there's no wonder for that. I mean, it has 23 producing gold mines. It's consistently ranked at the top. And when you think about kind of gold produced on an annual basis, it's upwards of $8 or $9 billion a year. So there's huge incentives, good permitting, and it's a great place to work. And so this is also one of the very pertinent, salient points that the project offers. You can kind of see where Fondaway Canyon is located and relative to our other projects in the region. And again, it's just a really super quick 2-hour drive from Reno. Of note, we acquired the Fondaway Canyon project about a year ago. It came with an extremely nice, sizable historic resource. And you can see there on the bottom right, in the indicated category, greater than 400,000 ounces, grading better than 6 grams, and inferred 660,000 ounces in the inferred category. So this is a wonderful foundation, and it has an extremely kind of inherent value to it, kind of acquiring a project that has such a sizable resource. But as I was saying earlier, it's really the untapped potential that is really going to increase the value and kind of put Fondaway Canyon on the map. Kind of zooming into the property, you're looking at about an east-western extent of about 3.5 kilometers. What I'm going to be talking about today is I'm going to be talking about the central area. This is about an area that is about 800 meters by 800 meters in size. It has quite a myriad 40-year history of exploration. And we completed at the end of 2020 a 2,000-meter 6-drill hole program. And today I'm going to be talking about the 5 drill holes that we drilled in the center area here of Fondaway Canyon. So this is a kind of a real-world view of the central area. You're looking at kind of a well utilized North Slope there, quite a number of significant drill access trails and kind of historic open pit mining. You can see in yellow where I've kind of highlighted the 5 drill holes and their locations that we completed. And I'm going to be focusing on 2 sections of this. So you're kind of looking at 2 northeast, southwest sections from Colorado to Pack Rat, for example, on the left with the 4 drill holes. And then we're kind of focusing on the Half Moon section and drill hole number 4. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be starting off here now on the left there with the Colorado to Pack Rat section. And so this is what it looked like in 2016. There was quite a number of drill holes drilled, but the vast majority of them are just kind of very superficial near surface drill holes. What I've specifically highlighted in purple is the historic resource, or the envelope of the historic resource. And I want to really kind of highlight how constrained it is. It was focusing more on sort of like the high grade conduits rather than the overall broader mineralization. In 2017, the previous operator drilled 3 drill holes on this section. It was an extremely successful drill program. You could kind of see what they were starting to do. They were starting to kind of connect the dots and to start kind of building up the broad zones of mineralization. You can see by their results from 1702 and hole 1703 that these are really kind of, these are near surface, high grade, broad zones of mineralization. And so from surface down, you're kind of already projecting it down about 300 meters or so. Another 300 meters over to the left, you could kind of see one of the historic drill holes, HFCO2, and that was drilled in 1985, and it hit a substantial intersection as well, grading about 1 gram over 100 meters. And then I want to really draw your attention to hole 1701. 1701 was testing the roots of the Pack Rat zone to see if the mineralization extended down. But what it really is showing you is actually it's showing you that that mineralization is extending all the way back up to surface at Colorado, which represents about an 800-meter length of potential mineralization. And so this is kind of what we walked into. And it was extremely apparent what we needed to do here. We needed to start showing that there was this greater than 100-meter thick zone of mineralization that was not only continuous, but we can actually extend it from the known mineralization. And this is just a very quick shot of the Colorado pit from where our drill was stationed. And you could kind of see hole 02 drilled along section. And we drilled hole 03 just not to show kind of how the continuous the mineralization was on section, but also how the potential breadth of it as well. And so we drilled 4 holes. In January, we reported on just 2 of them. Hole 2 and 3, and they came up in spades. They proved that the mineralization was about 100 meters thick, well mineralized. But what they also added was we actually discovered something new. There was a new kind of like really high grade conduit that wasn't insubstantial by any stretch of the imagination. You can see by that intersection, it was 6.2 grams grading 22 meters. And this is fairly close to surface. It's within 100 meters of surface. And so this is kind of a whole new zone of mineralization, mineralized structure that we'll be following up on our next drill program. But to kind of like to just add to the story, when we got the results for hole 5 and 6, you can see our last intersection in hole 5 was 1.8 grams gold over 90 meters. That is extremely substantial. There was about 45 meters there that was grading better than 3 grams. So from that point onwards, back up to the surface, you can kind of show that that's about a 500-meter extent. And if you want to draw in the intersection of hole 1701, which actually ended in mineralization, you can show and project the band of mineralization going greater than 800 meters. So this is actually quite substantial, and it's a huge kind of value increase from when we received the project just a short year ago. I'm going to move over now just to about 300 meters to the southeast to hole 4. And the purpose of hole 4 was to kind of drill the high-grade half-moon shear vein to kind of show the prominence of the the high-grade conduits that are present at Fondaway, but then also to really test the down dip extent and show that the mineralization extends as well and is as broad and as thick as we showed on the previous section. You can kind of see quickly here where the half-moon area relates to the the north slope, and on the left, kind of what the Half Moon shear vein looks like when it is exposed on surface. In 1989, a previous operator went underground to kind of test for bulk tonnage potential. And you can kind of see on the drift on the right, as the grading of the rounds, very good gold grade, continuous. There is variability to it, as you can see in the photo on the left. That's basically, it's not a tabular or planar shear or quartz vein. It's actually a mineralized structural quartz zone. And this could be quite broad. For example, the last face on the drift graded better than 12 grams over 4.3 meters. And you can see numerous channel samples that are 20 grams or 25 grams gold. So kind of really high grade. And that is something that Fond du Way brings. Not only is there like a really broad low grade envelope that you could kind of encapsulate in a new operational model, but there's also these really kind of high grade conduits that are fairly continuous, and you can follow them. So we drilled the Half Moon shear vein, as you can see here on section, across about a 50-meter length of drill core. We intersected 3 zones, and these are kind of like either the Half Moon or splays of the Half Moon. Very good grade, very representative. I mean, 8.6 grams gold over 9.8 meters. I mean, really nice. And it does show kind of like the prominence of those high grade conduits, which is kind of very classic Fond du Way Canyon. But of real note is that about 350 meters down the hole, we entered the target zone of mineralization. And over the next 150 meters, the drill stayed within the mineralized zone and still ended in mineralization with the last sample grading 8 grams over 1 meter. So this represents the new, like, North Folk zone that we envisioned. This was something that we envisioned and we tested here, and it came up great. Is that, again, you have this really thick, well-mineralized zone that actually has some continuity. This represents about a 200-meter step out. And if you kind of take that whole 4 and you kind of look at it in entirety, about 50% of that drill hole was within a mineralized zone. So that kind of shows you the prominence of the mineralization at Fond du Way Canyon, as well as it shows you the potential of the mineralizing system. And I do believe it is a lot larger than what we have previously envisioned and what past operators have previously envisioned. So kind of like to bring it all together, you can kind of see here in plan view the 5 drill holes that were drilled in the central area. On the left, the Colorado to Packrat zone, those 4 drill holes that you see there all intersected. And just to kind of put it in perspective, if you look off to the far left, you can see where the 1701 intercept is. And so what we've done is we've actually projected the mineralization all the way from Colorado, all the way through that intercept on that section. And then if you move over to the Half Moon, you can kind of see where the North Fork mineralization was hit, like for the last 150 meters at the bottom of that hole. Again, everything is completely open laterally and down dip. And you can kind of see the intercept of hole 1705 there farther in the distance. And again, once again, we're projecting the mineralization all the way from the surface, 800 meters, all the way through hole 1705. And so in a very small drill program that we've drilled, we've definitely, you know, shown and proven the continuity of the mineralization, nice and broad and thick. And of course, it still remains open both laterally and down dip. So you can readily see, you know, like what we've accomplished to date and what we can possibly accomplish over the next year. And we're looking at 2021 to be one of the kind of like a very, very active and exciting year. Getchell Gold at the Fond du Way Canyon project, it's going to be one of the most active projects kind of in the region. And we're going to start to kind of prove up and build out that mineralization. So if you think back to the historic resource and how confined the historic resource is, and what we've just shown to date with 5 simple drill holes, just kind of imagine what we can do like over the next year. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Taylor.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mike. That was a great overview and recap of the drilling success over the past few months here. So, to get started with some of the questions, I guess, going forward, you've got this updated resource kind of on the horizon
Mhm.
in the near term. And, I guess where is the biggest opportunity to kind of look at in the future, go at Fondaway Canyon, I guess, like what zones, maybe
Yeah,
if you can pull up the plan view slide and point that
sure.
out.
Yeah, I think I'll just talk about the central area for now. I
Okay.
mean, that is going to be the major focus of our endeavors here in 2021, and it's going to be focused twofold. One, of course, is infilling and strengthening out the mineralization, so we can do not only a proper like a resource calculation, but we can actually move it very quickly into a PEA. And that's something that, of course, everybody wants to know and everybody wants to see is what would an economic operation look like here at Fondaway Canyon. So that's sort of like one of the tasks that we have at hand. But then, of course, I mean, the mineralization is completely open. We don't know how big the system is. Uh, so part of the drill program will also be to kind of start showing that the mineralization just continues to extend and maybe give you an idea of actually how big it is. So that's kind of the central area. Another area we're going to focus on is the pediment zone off to the west. It had two previous intersections that were drilled in 2002 that came up with some really nice, like 25-meter, 30-meter intercepts that were never followed up. We tried this year in 2020. The hole failed right at the target zone. The gold was starting to tick up. We knew we were kind of right there. We entered a fault and we just couldn't proceed any further. So the pediment zone is kind of a whole distinct target on its own. It has its own like huge potential to it. It's nice. It's very classic Carlin style in sort of like the limestone marble host, and it could have some really significant legs to it. So a series of our drilling will kind of tackle the pediment zone and to kind of characterize and start to follow up and expand the mineralization that's out there. And I mean, the entire 3.5 kilometers, even though it's been kind of worked at for 40 years, it's been extremely selective and very superficial. This is a very strong 3.5 kilometer mineralized zone. And if you take even the vertical extent of it, of the known mineralization, it's about 600 meters in vertical extent. Again, everything is completely open at depth, open laterally. I do want to highlight that this is a more substantive gold mineralizing system than people have previously realized. And the drilling to come is going to kind of start to show that.
Great. Yeah, and we've only got a couple minutes. Maybe with Fondaway Canyon being your focus, I do know you have some other exploration in the works coming up. Maybe you could give us a quick recap of what that activity looks like.
Yeah, and it's a great. I mean, we have some good properties in our portfolio. It's really good bonus to our shareholders. I mean, Fondaway Canyon is going to realize value. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We have a property to about 60 kilometers to the north, the Star Project. Historically, very high grade copper, gold, and silver at surface. So historical copper mining, historical artisanal mining, but extremely high grade. I mean, Fondaway Canyon is classic gold, but the Star Project actually has the copper, the gold, and the silver. It's never been drilled before, and we've developed some compelling geophysical targets over the last couple of years that we're going to drill there. And what we're doing is we're actually looking for the source of the mineralization that we see on surface. So it's a grassroots drill program, but if it comes up with anything material, it's really going to kind of add to the story.
Great. And really quickly, question came in. Please, could you discuss your shareholder profile and trading activity on both the CSC and OTC?
It's been very, very good of late. We have good liquidity. We actually have excellent support We do have some long-term shareholders that have kind of been with the company in its previous previous form for kind of going on about 10 years now or so. And so we know actually where the most of our shares are being held. It's very tightly held, and you can tell, compared to the other companies, when you check their trading charts, you can tell that there's excellent support for this, not only for the company, but for this project. And people realize the value. I mean, when you actually start to equate, you know, like the potential gold in the ground relative to the valuation of gold ounces, you can still really, I mean, evidently tell that we're quite undervalued.
Great. And with that, we're out of time. So I'd like to thank Mike from Getchell Gold for presenting the story to us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, everybody.